Coach Dungy made a great point today on Twitter. Let's not get so caught up in what happened at the very end of the game, and we'll talk about that. But the fact that the Cowboys fell behind 23-7 is far more alarming in some respects than the way that they thought they could pull off a quarterback draw, a spike, stop the clock, and throw it to the end zone in the final seconds of the game. This is a team that was outclassed, and but for Jimmy Garoppolo doing the things that Jimmy Garoppolo sometimes does, Mike, the Cowboys would have never had a chance. And they got blown off the field on both sides of the ball. That's what should be alarming to the Cowboys. They ran into a brick wall yesterday that pushed them around for 3 quarters.
So what happens in a game like that, Mike, and you've seen it, you've watched the game long enough, and I've been out there, is everybody focuses on the end of the game, and we'll do that. But there are at least a handful of plays during a game, and more in this one, that could have a cause to the outcome. You had 14 penalties. 14 penalties. You're the most penalized team in the league, and you lived up to it in the last game. So there were other mistakes out there. Obviously, not just Dak. The quarterback gets too much praise. The quarterback gets too much thrown at him as well, but we'll get into what he did at the end. And you're right. I mean, all for the overthrow in the Super Bowl by Garoppolo. He has an overthrow in this game that ends up leading to a touchdown for Dallas. You thought, because this was kind of like the game I did in Cincinnati. Cincinnati was in control, but the Raiders were just doing enough, or there were enough mistakes made on the other side to keep the Raiders in it. And that was the same thing here. The 49ers were controlling this game. That defensive line, they beat up on the offensive line of the Cowboys. They didn't run the ball well. They sacked Dak 5 times, which means they knocked him down twice as many times. That's usually what that means. And then the ridiculous amount of penalties that went on. 14 penalties. And I know we're going to get into Mike McCarthy and how much is he to blame. These are professional athletes who get paid to play this game. You know what? If I jump off sides, or I move before the ball is snapped, or I get called for holding, you know what I'm not doing as a player? I'm not looking at the sideline and saying, Coach, that was your fault. That's my damn fault. I did it on the field. So there's a real, you want to say a lack of discipline from the head coach in not shoring that up? Well, there's a lack of discipline from the players as well, committing all those penalties and leading the league in that category.
But, I think there's so many layers and levels to it. You're bringing in players who lack the discipline. You're not instilling the discipline in them, and they ultimately aren't performing with discipline. One of the things we hear all the time from Bill Belichick, the Patriots head coach, how they try to minimize penalties, because they know what a difference that 5 yards can make, that 15 yards can make, that penalty that wipes out the quarterback sneak on 4th and short by the 49ers because Jimmy Garoppolo hurried to the line and freaked out, as Kyle Shanahan said today. I know that's the other team, but still, it's a lack of discipline. You need to instill it in your players. You need to have players who you can trust to have discipline. You need to make sure that they understand there's accountability for not being disciplined. Then ultimately, it's on them to go out and do it. You can't do it for them, but you pick the players and you coach the players as a team. And if you don't have guys who are sufficiently disciplined to avoid that over and over and over again, you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, are we getting the right players?
Listen, I agree. And there's a reason. Listen, I keep going back to the game I did, but the Raiders were the second most penalized team in the NFL. And everybody talks about coaching there. Well, how many coaches have they been through in the last decade or two? But they're always near the top. So maybe you have to look past that as well. Yeah, there's a reason. It is not just one person that you can look at and say that's your fault. Now, the head coach is the head coach, so he's going to get a lot of the brunt of it, which, they know comes with the territory. But there is a whole lot of people, Mike, a whole lot of people that need to look in the mirror and say, okay, what are you doing? I mean, the fake punt, what a beautiful fake punt. But then you try and get him to jump off sides after that, and then you run your whole team off. And when you do that, there's going to be a substitution, so the rest's going to stand on the ball. You run your team off too late to where you get a delay of penalty game. I mean, come on. I mean, and Cowboy fans are going to blame the refs. The refs did they did everything right in those instances in this game. The Cowboys have nobody to blame but themselves.
And before we focus on the last play of the game, you mentioned the fake punt, and then it worked. Then after that, they leave the punt team out there. They act like they're going to call play. It is so obvious and so obviously an effort by the Cowboys to do what was done to them by the Cardinals 2 weeks earlier when they got duped into wasting a timeout. And they didn't have that timeout when the time came to throw the red challenge flag late in the game when the Cardinals fumbled. It was so obvious that's what Mike McCarthy was trying to do, and it didn't work. So what happened? They gave up 5 yards of field position for nothing because they thought they could snooker Kyle Shanahan and company into taking a timeout. And I think Shanahan's smart enough to understand, I know exactly what's going on here, and I'm not taking this bait. I'm not eating this cheese. I'm going to make him take a 5-yard penalty, and we'll just go from there. But on that final play of the game, Mike, 14 seconds on the clock, ball's just outside the 40-yard line of the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers finally woke up to the fact that the Cowboys are working the sideline. 3 straight plays, one was a hook and ladder, but regardless, 3 straight plays to the sideline. You see all of the 49ers defensive players are right along the sideline. So there's the quarterback draw. Slide starts at the 26, finishes inside the 20. Tick, 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 tick. And all of this that happened, the chaos that ensued, the ball didn't get spiked before the clock hit triple zeros. And it really is, I wrote something about it today on PFT, and I tried to identify all the different ways the Cowboys screwed it up. It was a total failure of coaching and execution, and really the failures of execution reflect a failure of coaching, because Mike McCarthy said they practice this every week. We're not practicing it very well if you practice it every week, and this is the outcome. And Chris Sims made a great point today. Do they have somebody playing the role of the umpire who runs up and gets the ball and spots it? Because that was the biggest flaw. They needed to roll the red carpet out for that guy so he could get through to spot the ball. And they were blocking him from doing the thing that he had to do before they could snap the ball. That, to me, was the most glaring failure of all of this, not creating a path for the umpire to do his part of the job that was critical to the ball being snapped and spiked.
The refs did everything right here. And the first thing I tweeted about this play was I had no problem with the play call. Listen, if you wanted to throw 2 Hail Marys from the 41-yard line, you could have. Fine, if that's the way you wanted to go. But everyone's saying, why are you running in the middle of the field? They're running in the middle of the field because, as you can see, the outside is covered. I have a former NFL player that was in my house during the game on an offensive side of the ball, and he said we had plays set up there where the quarterback either runs the middle or we run a slant route because the middle is open. You get about 10 yards, 12 yards, you slide, hit the dirt, get up, give the ball to the ref. That's what they practice. So that's why they ran it to the middle of the field. I had no problem with the play call. Dak ran a little too far, and he had to be more aware of how far he went to kill the time. And the one thing I tweeted, I said, does anybody watch the video of Larry Fitzgerald back in the day do this?
Yes.
And sure enough, I saw videos of it everywhere today. Larry Fitzgerald, not only when he caught the ball, his teammate would catch the ball. Larry would take the ball from his teammate, sprint it to the center, hand it to the center, and the center would hand it to the official. It was a well-oiled machine. The Cowboys couldn't have done it worse. Dak ran too far, took too much time that way, then gave the ball to the center. The center needed to find the ref who's coming up for Pine, turn around and hand it to him and give him the space to spot the ball. This has been done many, many times. The execution by the players on the field was horrific. And you're right. If they said that they work on this during the week, then they obviously, maybe they get it right during the week, like you get a lot of things right during the week. But you know, when the lights are blazing brightly and there's not enough time on the clock or the clock is ticking down, well, sometimes you freak out a little bit, and they obviously did here. So blaming the ref was the cheap way out of this one. The refs were correct. The Cowboys coaches and players were wrong.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.